Hi, welcome to the Jon Gaunt podcast. A kind of new mini series here. It's called Jon Gaunt Meets. And basically, it's me meeting and talking to interesting people. They could be from the world of politics, the world of sport, the world of leisure. Also, one of my favourite subjects, they could be from the world of pubs and hospitality. This headline in the Daily Telegraph screamed at me early last week. It says, Britain to lose a pub a day as Labour's tax raid bites. The government is accused of calling last orders as the industry fears 6,000 jobs will go this year alone. So I'm asking, is this the end of the British boozer? Is it the end of hospitality? And if it is, what's caused it? Is it COVID? Is it the NI tax rises? Is it the minimum wage? Or is it a combination of all those things? It's the British Beer and Pub Association, the BBPA, who are predicting that 378 pubs will shut across England, Wales and Scotland before the end of this year, and that's up from 350 closures last year. It'll mean that the number of pubs will be at their lowest level this century. They also state that for every £3 spent on pints that you and I spend in a boozer, either on beer or food, £1 of it goes straight to Rachel Reeves and the government in tax. This is unsustainable. If, like me, you think pubs, hospitality, restaurants, if you think that's all part of the fabric of Britain, we've got to do something to stop this happening. So I thought I'd have a chat with Rick Cressman, an old mate of mine, but he also runs a very, very successful hotel on the outskirts of Coventry and Birmingham in a place called Berkswell, called Nailcote Hall Hotel. It's got a lovely golf course, and we'll talk about that later as well. But he's one of the people who's been suffering with what's been going on. I'm delighted to say he joins me now. Good afternoon, Rick.
Yeah, good afternoon to you, John.
Right. Is this a panic story in the Daily Telegraph, or is this how it feels at the sharp end to you?
I think it is a very, very serious story. We're part of the UK hospitality organisation, which represents our industry, and I also know, a number of others from the other associations and industry representatives that are screaming out to the government and all MPs in Parliament, really, to actually get behind our industry.
Are they listening?
I think it's very worrying. I did suggest recently that we should issue some hearing aids to all of them as a Christmas present. I think there's grave doubts that they're not listening enough. I think they think that sometimes that maybe everyone's just crying wolf, but I don't think that's the case at all.
Okay. What would you say to people who would be watching this and say it's just the market? There's too many pubs. People no longer go to the boozer after work. Life's changed. Supermarkets are there. You can have a tipple at home.
I think it's a very sad indictment on everyone if they actually turn our social life off. And I think that's the real fear I have, is that people are being driven into their homes to be communicated to by government on 24 hours a day news channels, and that a ready meal and a beer from the supermarket in front of the TV being told what to do, rather than meeting up with friends and actually talking about what's going on in our society, I think is a crying shame.
And you think that's almost deliberate, do you? Because I've heard this from other people where they say the pub is the assembly room, the market square of modern life, so to speak. And that in a way it suits, and this is not a party political point, it suits most politicians if that assembly point isn't there. So you think that's partly what's happening?
I think that is partially what's happening, and I think we've obviously highlighted on the pubs, but also when you look at the restaurants and what's going on in the high streets, I think they're all suffering from the same issues. And the bottom line is that, as Kate Nichols and Alan Simpson from UK Hospitality keep telling them now, We're
Yeah.
being taxed out of being able to run profitable operations.
O-
That's out of order by government.
Okay, let's talk about that tax situation. As I say, the British Pub and Association, they're saying out of every £3 we spend on food or booze in a restaurant or in a hotel, £1 is going straight to the exchequer. Is that true or is that hyperbole?
I think that's actually an underestimate. I think the amount of tax that government collects from hospitality is considerably higher than that. Um, Obviously, my experience with hotel rather than, let's say, just a focal pub
Yeah.
is slightly different. The total amount of tax they collect is well in excess of 50% of the money that's spent in a venue is going to the government already.
Has that not always been the case, or have things changed post COVID? Tell me.
I think it's just become worse. And the pressure that's been built by energy costs,
Mm,
the extra costs of NI now from Rachel Reeves. I think you have to understand that during COVID 5 years ago, a lot of premises and businesses in hospitality, pubs, restaurants, hotels, all of us, were closed for maybe 16 months. So that's a long, long time. And I know that the last government supported us with furlough, which helped with staff.
yeah.
It didn't necessarily help with the business.
Hold on
And
a minute. Hold on a minute. I've got to pull you
yeah,
up there. You did. There was the old hospitality loans, though, wasn't there? What was all that about?
well,
Didn't they?
the
Didn't they do as
loan,
much as they could?
uh, I think they did do a lot to try to help. But what I'm just saying is the impact on businesses, if you're shut down, as we were
Mm, mm,
for
mm.
16 months in the last 5 years, the damage at the end of the day meant borrowing an additional £800,000. Very hard to pay that back in a rush. And then, like most people in pubs or restaurants or hotels, the energy crisis landed 14 months after we reopened. I know in my own personal case that cost the business another £300,000. And even now, for myself, that's not fully settled and resolved. And then about another 12 months later, we get Rachel Reeves in her October budget, whacking up the NI and living wage and so on.
Okay.
Very quickly after Jeremy Hunt the year before had, had a substantial impact on pay as well.
Let's go and talk about those things in a couple of moments. You're watching the John or listening to the Jon Gaunt podcast. This is Jon Gaunt Meets, first of a new little series I'm doing. I'm talking to Rick Cressman. He runs the Nailcote Hall hotel and golf club on the outskirts of Birmingham and Coventry in a place called Brinklow. Talking about tax and whether we're going to lose more and more hospitality, whether it's pubs, whether it's hotels, whether it's restaurants, and the reasons for it. In this video and in this podcast, you can't react live because it's not going out live, but you can react afterwards. Just put a comment at the bottom of the YouTube video and I would read every single one of them, or get in touch via Twitter or indeed via Facebook. And if you want to support me, you know how to do that. It's www.buymeacoffee.com/Jon Gaunt. It's as simple as that. Right, let's bring back Rick if we can. So, Rick, let's talk about those issues you've just brought up. Let's talk about COVID. A lot of people who I know in hospitality and in pubs, they say COVID also killed the idea of people wanting to go out or spending a lot when they go out. They're always worried now that, look, the wheels literally did fall off the wagon during COVID. People lost their work, etc., etc., and now they're much more nervous. Now, you're a major wedding venue. Have you found that they're spending less on weddings, or indeed are wedding bookings down?
Yeah, wedding bookings, I think if you talk to most venues, wedding bookings are down.
Mm,
People do still want to socialize. I do believe that. I don't think that people don't want to socialize. But what's happened as a result of COVID and deliberate government policy is that the cost of going out has gone up because There's been absolutely no way that your pubs, restaurants, or hotels could actually cope with all the costs that have gone on. And we didn't even mention a few minutes ago the incredibly high business rates, which up until COVID, particularly, were way in excess of other businesses and very successful businesses to boot. I mean, people like,
Explain that to me. Explain to me that difference, because you told me this before. The
yeah.
difference in the kind of rates that you're paying in, say, a big retail park or whatever.
Well, just as an example, Amazon prior to COVID would pay about 0.35 of a penny in every pound of their revenue in
Mm.
business rates. Um, Here at Nailcote Hall, it was 3.5 pence per pound, so 10 times more.
Why
And
is
government,
that? Why is that?
it in very simple terms, my reaction is that it's because if you actually operate in a, if I said in a nice place, in a pretty venue,
Mm.
whether it's a hotel or a restaurant or a pub, um, compared to a warehouse or
Yeah.
possibly occupying, dare I say it, quite pleasant offices, possibly even in the city and so on, the cost per square meter of business rates is of the order of 10 times more between those in our area in a pretty place compared to a
Mm.
more ordinary environment, and it's got nothing related to the actual
Mm.
profitability or the ability to pay that level of tax.
And therefore, that needs looking at, you're saying.
It's been promised for a long time. The current government is meant to be making a substantial change to it, but I guess I'm concerned. I'm not entirely convinced. We know that a
Yeah.
lot of things are said, and then a lot of things are not done. So who knows how honest they may or may not be? We haven't seen an awful lot of honesty for a long time.
Do we need a minister for hospitality?
I think a dedicated minister for hospitality is something that we've been crying out for a long time. There's small business, ministers, and there's
Yeah.
the likes of Jonathan Reynolds as the business secretary and so on. But fundamentally, our small and medium-sized business sector in total deserves a minister. The SMEs of this country, John, employ something like 60% of the working people population. And yet we're treated by government as though they think that the only people that can invest and grow our economy are big business or government itself. The small and medium sized sector that continually reinvests in their properties and in their businesses. I mean, for us, it could be buying pieces of furniture, it could be buying pieces of kitchen equipment, carpets, curtains, things that the pubs need as well. All these sort of items, if the ability of the businesses is so impaired that they're unable to reinvest
Yeah.
properly, then there's lots of other small businesses that don't get the income and revenue that they would like. And you need that money circulating in the economy.
Talk to me then also about investment in people, because obviously hospitality, myself included, that's how a lot of us get into the workforce. We start off as Saturday lads or collecting glasses, working backstage at the kitchen or whatever. With putting this NI up, my daughter runs a cocktail bar in Leamington in a part time, and she said, "Dad, it's almost ridiculous now." She said, "I agree with the minimum wage going up. However, I've got somebody now who basically just serves the drinks, and I'm only earning 40p more than her." And she said it's unsustainable and the business can't afford it. And then they brag about, "We've given you a rise." The government, this present government, but it's not them who's given them the rise. It's people like you, isn't it?
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's businesses that make the paydays,
Yeah.
and it's businesses' customers that actually ultimately make paydays possible.
Mm.
And at the end of the day, most of the hospitality industry has had no choice, whether it's, as I say again, pubs, restaurants, hotels, whatever. to react in the straightforward way of reducing staff numbers. And we've seen something like 100,000 people in hospitality have lost their jobs since last October. And the other thing is obviously is in response to this is cutting the volume of hours and timing that people are working. So the degree of open service that's available to people is reduced. And that means, again, even if somebody gets more money per hour, if they get less hours work, then actually they haven't improved their pay at all.
And are you telling me that's a very real thing that's happening at the moment in hospitality?
Oh, without any question. Without any question. Everyone is having to monitor the hours they're open and the number of people. And I think one of the saddest things as a consequence of what this government has done is that, I mean, I've been in here for 34 years now.
Yeah.
And I'd have to say I'm always very proud, and I get a lot of lovely people that come back and visit me sometimes, and Sue here at Nailcote. And they're people who say, my first job was working for you,
Yeah.
and I loved it and I enjoyed it. And it set me on my way. I think so many people that come into the pubs, restaurants, and hotels, they learn a lot of social skills dealing with people in these environments, which is excellent for their futures. And the bottom line is now that our industry is actually offering less opportunities to young people, but we've got a government that sits here saying we want to see more people young people in employment. Well, the
Okay.
best employer is the hospitality industry, and we're having our wings clipped, and we're not able to do what we've traditionally done.
So increasing the minimum wage, although we may all individually agree with it, I certainly do. I think it was too low before. However, what you're saying is that's reducing opportunity when opportunity should be opening up. I mean, especially post Brexit, I guess, because there aren't so many Europeans here.
Yeah, I think the other thing that you have to remember, John, is that for probably a lot of years since the financial crisis, going back to 2008-9 time,
Yeah.
the improvements in rate of pay have consistently been provided and given
Mm.
in a growing economy situation. Right now, we do not have a growing economy. We
Okay.
don't. If we're honest about it, we can listen to all the pundits going on
Yeah.
about it one way or another. It's up a bit, or down a bit, or whatever. The bottom line is it's pretty much stagnant at the best. And it's if you say, well, we're just going to just keep increasing pay, that's fine. In a growing economic situation, that can happen. As soon as you've got a declining or stagnant situation, the pressure that is then piled onto businesses is
Mm.
exactly what you've just said. It's unsustainable, and it also means that a lot of businesses find, particularly in the SMEs of the country, that the pay rate between what you just described with your daughter is
Mm.
happening for a lot of other maybe junior managers, people growing up the ladder of a business that find that the lowest paid get a lot more,
Mm.
and then the business can't provide more for someone in a more senior position.
Yeah. Therefore,
That's
the business
not a
doesn't grow.
healthy, it's not a
Yeah.
healthy environment to create.
Okay. So, what do you think of Rachel Reeves' management of the economy on the whole wider issue? You're a man who's been in business all these years. You've run that hotel for 34 years. I know your father was a very successful businessman in the Midlands area. People will probably know him and remember him from Bristol Street Motors, etc. So, your family is steeped in business. Where's Rachel Reeves going wrong?
Well, I couldn't call it management. I feel it can only be described as mismanagement. Simple as that. I really do. I think that to date, the facts are there. We've
Is
got
she not up
growing.
to the job? Is that what you trying politely to tell
I
me?
don't think so. I don't think she is. But that's my personal opinion. She might be a lovely lady, and she might be
Yeah, yeah, sure.
wonderful in other areas. But I just don't see her having a real grip on the real world that we're all living in and that we're all fighting
Do
so hard to actually operate.
Do you think anybody in government's got that grip on the so-called real world? We'll go across to the Conservatives in a moment, but do you think Keir Starmer understands what it's like?
Well, I guess if you've got nice friends that provide you with suits and clothes and things like that free of charge, it's probably not too big a problem for you. But no, I don't think he understands
Okay.
really much about business. I don't think the assistant to Rachel Reeves, Darren P. Jones,
Yeah.
understands business, and I don't think Jonathan Reynolds understands business. You
Oh,
know what? I'll say this as well.
go on.
Going back in time, there was in a different era of the Labour Party, John Prescott, who in the earliest part of his life
Yeah,
actually
ship
worked
steward.
on board ship
Yeah,
and actually served people and waited on people and so on, I think had far more understanding about real life and business and dealing with people in reality than what we've got now.
that's amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah,
And probably a very good observation, actually. But let's go to the Conservatives then. Do you have any confidence in what they're doing?
not a lot. Not a
Okay,
lot. I do think there are people there, though, that have got better understanding of the reality
sure,
of business.
sure.
Um, but they need to find I do believe there are other ways that the government can generate revenue, and I think the government still has got to find ways of cutting
Of course.
costs. I think we have the moment a very we had with COVID and everything else, we had a very difficult situation in the last government, but we've now got a government that seems to me to be being very, very wasteful in
Okay.
areas that are just utter nonsense. I don't believe in, carbon capture machines. The best thing we've had for carbon capture, I've planted 260 of them in the last 34 years, and
What are
that's
they called?
they're called
Trees.
called
Yeah,
trees.
yeah.
Just down the road from me, with HS2, they keep chopping down lovely mature carbon capture machines called oak trees, and so you say, come on, you're just throwing money away and throwing money overseas.
Well, hang
It's
on,
disgrace.
slow down, because that's really interesting what you're saying. Bringing in HS2, because for people who don't know where your hotel is, you're right bang next to the HS2 line. And you mentioned the green agenda. Do you think they're obsessed with this green target, this idea of all cars being electric? It's like a Gary Newman song. But what do you reckon? Are they just crazy?
Um, I think that the whole net zero scheme with Ed
Sure.
Miliband is just way over the top,
Okay.
way over the top.
All right, way
And I
over the top.
think
Now, a man who says he'd get rid of all that is Nigel Farage, of course, of Reform UK. He's massively ahead in the polls. People predicting he could be the next Prime Minister. He's got a lot of work to do. He's only got 5 MPs. But do you think he's got some of the answers?
um, I'll actually say this. I think it's a little too early to say he has
Okay.
all the answers. He has a lot of the words,
Yeah.
but whether he can produce a lot of the actions
Yeah.
is open to question. And I think to be able to produce the right actions, he would need a lot more of the right people. I think, despite their obviously appallingly small number of MPs at the moment, the Conservatives have got more potential people that can actually produce the actions if they want to. And I think that they need to listen and reattach themselves to our small and medium sized business sector, which, as I said, employs some 60% of working population. I feel that our SMEs generally, again, pubs, restaurants, hotels, lots of other smaller businesses, I think feel quite abandoned, that we don't matter. And I think that stems from this feeling that I have, and I have a feeling you might share it, is that whilst governments continue to be elected and then actually not spend their time actually governing for the majority
Mm, mm.
of the country, we will have problems. we should all be respectful and understanding and want to cope with the what we used to refer to as integration of society. Now it's all
Sure.
referred to as diversity and keeping everything in pockets of culture. I'd like to see a lot more sharing in the whole
Sure.
way that we're living. I think it's gone way off track, to be honest.
I think that goes across both parties, if we're being
Yes,
honest. But
yes,
let's just talk about that because you brought up the question. We're talking about immigration and
yeah.
illegal, and of course legal immigration. I'm very keen on legal immigration, well controlled and managed. I think it's made our country better. You do need immigration, and with an aging population. However, this free for all we've got at Dover, and of course it's a real hot potato at the moment with the cost of migrant hotels, etc., etc. I mean, it's as if we've lost control. But it isn't just Starmer, although I quite enjoy putting the boot into him. The previous government and Boris Johnson, he basically just waved in everybody. It's unsustainable, isn't it?
Well, also, you can't forget, we also waved out a lot of people
Yes,
through
yes,
Brexit.
yeah,
I mean, personally, I put my hands up. I'm a third generation immigrant family.
yeah,
My grandfather was encouraged to come to England back in the 1930s, so nearly 100 years ago, to establish a business to provide Ford car
mm,
production with oil seals.
mm,
And up the road in Tyseley near Acox Green, he established a business called Super Oil Seals and then acquired Bristol Street Motors. My father was second generation uh, immigrant family,
sure.
and I'm a third. You know,
So was Brexit a mistake?
I think on reflection, there's a lot of things that haven't been handled correctly with Brexit. A
Yeah,
lot
well, I
of
think I
things
share
haven't
that
been
opinion. I think
corrected.
with Brexit, we never got the Brexit that we were promised because the
No,
people who ended up in charge of it didn't
yeah,
really believe in it. It's
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
chicken and egg, isn't it? It's a
Yeah,
difficult one.
so we've ended up with a bit of a dog's dinner Brexit, which, yeah, I don't think it's not worked out the way and anyone really was,
Okay.
I think, expecting. I think, personally, I believe in this country. My family have always believed in this country. We've succeeded and employed lots of people in this country. We've grown
Yeah.
businesses in this country, and I find it very distressing at this time, harking back to hospitality, to see the business in area that I'm involved in now, to see that being, as UK hospitality keeps saying, being taxed out. And you're seeing businesses closing, you're
Sure.
seeing people losing their jobs.
Sure.
Well, how is that
Well,
caring for working people? It
well,
isn't.
well, going back to where we began, 6,000 jobs they're predicting could go by the end of the year in pubs alone. That has to be addressed, and it has to be addressed now. Just before we finish, because there's a few other things I want to talk to you about, but just talk to me about migrant hotels, because somebody listening or watching, and it is the Jon Gaunt podcast, by the way, you might be thinking, I'm speaking to Rick Cressman, owns a fantastic, beautiful hotel, great wedding venue if you fancy it, Nailcote Hall, just on the outskirts of Coventry and Birmingham. But where do you stand on migrant hotels? Anybody knocked on your door offering to take every room off you for the next 5 years? And if they did, why didn't you snatch their hands off?
Well, it's not actually ever happened. Nobody
Right.
suggested that. I don't believe.
What if they did?
Well, let me say this first of all. This hotel has got a leisure club and swimming
Yeah.
pool and local members and so on. The government, I don't believe, at any time has been looking to take on hotel venues with swimming pools and leisure facilities like this. So it's not really something I've ever been faced with or ever thought I would be faced with. So I haven't ever really considered it. What I can see is that, and it distresses me when I see it, is when I see very nice hotels locally, one or
Mm,
two that have gone that way,
yeah.
and you walk past them heading towards a shopping centre or whatever, and you see the state of their repair,
Yeah.
and you know that they're actually being paid very well by government,
Sure.
and the venue's not being looked after properly because they also know that at the end of the time when and if
They'll
ever
do the refurb.
they leave, the government's going to end up with a thumping great bill for the refurb. So, despite them actually earning well, they're not actually
Sure.
putting anything back into the venues. I think that's a really sad state of affairs, and I think that the government has been overpaying for what they're getting
Yeah,
for
not only
the
that, Rick.
immigrants they're looking after.
Not only that, Rick. I mean, the point is, it's £8 million a day to pay for this. I've been saying for weeks and weeks, I can't understand why we can't. You know, when there's a natural disaster, our brilliant armed forces go to Pakistan or India, wherever it is, and put up camp cities, tent cities, not treating people appallingly, treating them well, proper kitchen, shower facilities, etc., etc. Why can't we do that rather than give them 150 quid room in an ex-Hilton hotel with squeezy soap, as I go on about? I
Yeah.
just think it's ridiculous. And they don't come from nice hotels in France. If you go to the jungle, or wherever they want to call it this week in Calais, they're living in squalor. They're living in warehouses. They're living in converted warehouses and shops, which have got tents inside them. Why are we such a soft touch?
Well, I don't know. And when you think about it, this is one just to put into your head too, John.
Yeah,
Just look back at COVID. What did we do? We got our
hospital.
armed forces to
Yeah,
actually go out and actually set up, at very short notice,
yeah,
quite substantial hospital facilities
yeah.
and so on.
The
Uh,
Nightingale hospitals.
and
Yeah,
they were put up at an incredibly quick rate, and that was to house people from this country that were ill.
and do you
Um,
feel that would make it less of an incentive to come here? Do you think at the moment there's a thing that basically we've created an El Dorado? You know, the streets are paved with gold. So, because I've got nothing against the individual who wants to get here, like you, third generation immigrant, who want to make a better life for themselves. We can't have them all, obviously, but I can't have a go at an individual for that. But it's the system that's wrong, isn't it? We've got to make it look as if we're not going to do that. I mean,
well,
we've got to deport them. That's why Rwanda was such a good idea on one level.
yeah, I think on that level it was never given a chance,
No.
and it would have been interesting to find out if it would have worked.
Yeah.
Um, but the level of incentive to be here and to get into a rubber dinghy and actually get here
Yeah.
is, to me, it seems pretty obvious and pretty clear that there's one hell of an attraction to actually undertake that journey and to pay people a
Well,
lot of money for it.
also, you've got to
It's crazy.
remember, despite everything, this is still a great country. And of course, for many people, English is the second language of the world. So people want to come here because of our language and because of the perceived, well, not perceived, real opportunities, if indeed they do work hard. Let's get back off that for a moment. I want to go to the personal now. And I hope you don't mind me bringing this up. Of course, people might know the name Rick Cressman. Your brother, Tommy, uh,
Yeah.
no longer with us. He's famous for all the wrong reasons on one level.
Mm.
Um, he was brutally murdered by his girlfriend stroke lover, a woman called Jane Andrews. And the murder had such notoriety because she worked for a member of the royal family. Tell us just a quick background to that, Rick, if we can, and maybe that'll bring
Yeah.
us into justice as well.
Well, uh, his
Sorry, I
murder,
know it's hard.
his murderer, Jane Andrews, worked for the Duchess of York for about 9 years.
For Fergie, yeah.
Yeah, and basically, the bottom line of it all comes down to it that my brother had determined that he did not want to get married to her, and the net result was that she left the home on a Saturday afternoon after they'd come back from a holiday, and they'd been having some argumentative actions between them, and yeah, she left the house, but came back a few hours later and hit him over the head with a cricket bat when I think he was lying in bed asleep, and then stabbed him through the heart with a kitchen knife. And it couldn't have been much more considered and brutal.
No, of course not.
And because of obviously the connection to the royal family, I'm sitting here now 25 years later, and we're now on the 11th TV production to do with his murder. And I'm being honest with you, I don't feel I've had to field the media for a lot of years on this.
Mm,
A bit of me feels like I haven't really ever been able to properly grieve the loss of my brother
no.
because I've been having to cope with an incessant stream of media and TV and newspapers and everything. And I've had to try to protect, particularly my elderly mother, who sadly passed away 2 weeks ago.
I'm sorry to bring it up, Rick. Obviously, I am, but I think it's part of the story, and it's part of the world we're living in. And I'm steeped in media, as you know, both in terms of writing drama and being involved in that side of the business, as well as being an ex-journalist on things like The Sun. And of course, you're so right. The story was massive because of that royal connection. How long did she get sent to prison for? Because there was controversy about that as well, wasn't there?
Well, initially, she was she's given a life sentence, so she's still,
It doesn't mean life, though, does it,
licensed.
Rick?
No, it doesn't mean life. Her tariff was initially set at 12 years,
Yeah,
which I felt was pretty paltry,
I agree with
um,
you.
and it grew into 14 years because she, I call it escaped, and
Yeah, she did a runner.
they tell us that it's called absconded. That's a fancy word for escape, I think.
Yeah,
Anyhow, she did an extra 2 years, and then we went to a parole hearing and did what families are allowed to do and read out our statements and so on,
sure.
and came out of there. The Ministry of Justice says, "Oh, the, a recommendation from the prison is that she's not ready for release yet." And I think about 5 or 6 weeks later, it was announced she was going to be released. So that's another bit of government you don't need to listen to.
Sure. So, just to remind people, she murdered him in cold blood. He was asleep or dozing in bed with a
Mm.
cricket bat. Then, to make sure she'd done the job correctly, she then stabbed him with a kitchen knife several times in the
Well,
chest.
no, she stabbed him once.
Oh,
He
one,
took
sorry.
one blow. I believe he was asleep, and she hit him over the head. That didn't kill
Yeah,
him. What killed him was literally one
sure.
strike through his
I
heart.
understand. I understand.
Um,
So,
yeah,
and for that, she got 12 stroke 14 years. Clearly,
yeah,
you don't think the sentence was long enough, and I would agree with you there. But you've had another sentence, which you hinted at the beginning of this little bit of the conversation, which is the press have been fascinated by it, which, of course, me
mm,
being a tabloid journalist, I understand why. Um, but there's been 11. Every time I call you up, you say there's another blooming TV company making a
mm.
film. I mean, I know true crime and true crime podcasts are all the flavour, the de rigueur at the moment of life, of media life. But it's about time they left you and your family alone, isn't it? It must be
I
awful
think,
to have to come up with that and make sure you put in your side of the argument into the documentary or whatever it is they're making. It must
yeah.
be
Well,
dreadful.
as I say, I don't feel I've ever really been able to properly grieve the loss of my brother because I've been
No.
constantly having to cope with one thing or another. And I think right now the most recent productions, the one is a very substantial production that's been done by the people Left Bank Pictures that made The Crown,
Yep.
and that is a TV drama.
So they're
That
making a
that
TV
that
drama of your brother's
yeah,
murder. So
and
it's
that
not a documentary. It's not, oh, so and so
no,
thinks this, so and so thinks that.
no, no. I was going to say,
Jeez.
just I don't know if you hear it, but there's a bit
I
of
can hear, yeah, the thunder.
thunder
Yeah.
and lightning around here at the
Yeah.
moment.
Same
Um,
here. It's happening
yeah,
here. Yeah.
it's worrying in as much as I was talking to the detective Jim Dickey that investigated the murder recently, and his concern is it's all well and good fictionalizing something
Yeah.
that's a true story,
Sure.
but there's this risk element of distorting the truth.
Yeah.
And I wait with quite a lot of concern still that it's a four part TV drama like Mr. Bates and the Post Office
Sure.
on ITV,
Well,
and
The Crown was fictionalised in parts, wasn't it?
that's right. Oh
Obviously,
yeah,
just
yeah.
just before, just let me just stop you there because I'm a little bit wary about this. However, the danger when you fictionalize it, because some people, and please let's not mention any names at this point, have tried to portray it as if this woman, Jane Andrews, who murdered your brother, she was a victim of domestic abuse. And there is that danger, isn't it, that they're trying to rewrite history, which was not the case in the trial. And
No,
I feel for you that the
I hope.
Crown might try to do that. Go on.
Yeah, all I can say is that we've had meetings and we've tried to make sure
Yeah,
that my brother's character is properly represented by the actor who's playing the role,
sure,
and that the truth of the situation is properly reflected.
sure.
The I will say that the other program that's been produced right now is specifically about the trial, and that is then totally reliably factual, involving the prosecuting barrister and everyone. And I think that whatever comes out in the 4-part series,
Mm.
I hope that there's nothing that tries to rewrite history, because fortunately, this other program I think will address the truth 100%. So, in a slightly funny way, I'm actually quite pleased that this other documentary program is actually happening at basically the same time frame as the drama.
It's a dreadfully, dreadfully sad story that that you know that because of that royal connection, people still want to drag it up and up. And I really feel sorry for you. And as you say, for your poor dear mother who only passed away a couple of weeks ago, for her to go through this, and I know she had her own medical problems, which you were coping with and looking after her, on top of all the other problems of business. I just got to say thank you so much for being so open, so honest, and sharing your story and sharing your opinions today and your massive experience in hospitality. And Keir Starmer, you prat, get somebody like him in and talk to him so you understand what the problems are. Well, Rick, thank you
All
very,
right,
very much indeed for joining us. Stay there for a
all right,
moment. I
all
shall
right.
come back and say thank you to you in just a second. What do you make of that story, ladies and gentlemen? This is the Jon Gaunt podcast. That's the first of my Jon Gaunt meets set piece interviews. If you've enjoyed it, please retweet it. Please send it to all your friends. Like it and share it. That's the most important thing. Press the like and press the share button so more people can see it. It's another side to what I think I can do. So I hope you've enjoyed it. I'll be back with my normal show every night of the week, Monday to Thursday at 6:30, where it's a little bit less balanced and a little bit more of a rant, but we seem to enjoy it. Thank you for your support, both financially and indeed by watching it and sharing it and liking it. You know, we're trying to do something different, something you wouldn't necessarily get on the mainstream media. Thanks very much for watching. You've been looking and watching and hopefully participating with your emails and your comments later, the Jon Gaunt podcast. Thanks very much. If you've got kids, give them a kiss, give them a hug. Don't forget to tell them you love them. See ya.